Cyrus the framed student's fury. Bullies never knew what hit them. Milo Kavinsky hated being the new kid. At 15, he was lean and wiry, standing just 5'6" with perpetually hunched shoulders, as if trying to make himself even smaller. His dark brown hair fell across his forehead in an unruly mop that he frequently pushed away with nervous fingers. Behind wire-rimmed glasses, his grey eyes rarely made contact with others, instead focusing on the ground, his books, or the quickest exit route from whatever room he occupied. What no one at Westridge High School knew was that Milo had spent the past 7 years training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. His father, a former military combat instructor, had insisted that his son learn to defend himself after a bullying incident at his elementary school. Milo had taken to the disciplines with natural talent, earning his black belt in BJJ at 14 and becoming a formidable striker in Muay Thai. Despite his skills, his father had drilled into him a strict code: never use your abilities unless absolutely necessary, and never to intimidate or harm others without true cause. Fighting skills are for protection, not domination, his father would say. The moment you use them to become what you hate, you've lost everything I've taught you. So when Milo started at Westridge High, after his family's move across the country, he kept his head down and his talents hidden. He carried himself like someone who had never thrown a punch in his life, letting his slight frame and quiet demeanor become his camouflage. It took Derek Holloway exactly 3 days to single Milo out. Derek was a junior, taller than most teachers, at 6'2" with broad shoulders and a perpetual sneer. As captain of the wrestling team, he commanded respect through fear, with most students scrambling to clear his path in the hallways. His 2 constant companions were Trent Daler, a stocky redhead with a mean laugh, and Vince Patton, tall and lanky, with a penchant for cruel practical jokes. Together they ruled Westridge High's social hierarchy with iron fists. Westridge itself was a sprawling complex of brick buildings connected by covered walkways, housing nearly 2,000 students from the surrounding upper-middle-class suburbs. The school prided itself on its academic achievements and state championship sports teams, but beneath the gleaming veneer existed the same hierarchies and cruelties found in any high school. For Milo, the trouble began in the cafeteria. He had been sitting alone as usual, hunched over the lunch his mother had packed, when a shadow fell across his table. "That's our table, new kid," Derek's voice boomed, causing conversations to hush around them as students anticipated the entertainment to follow. Milo glanced up briefly, then back at his food. "Sorry," he muttered, quickly gathering his things. "I'll move." "Didn't catch that," Derek said, leaning down. "Speak up when you're addressed." Milo's fingers tightened around his paper bag. He could feel heat rising in his chest, the familiar sensation of adrenaline preparing his body for conflict. He forced his breathing to remain steady. "I said I'll move," he repeated, slightly louder, already standing. Derek grinned at Trent and Vince. "What's the rush? We haven't even introduced ourselves." He stuck out a hand. "Derek Holloway. Remember the name." Milo stared at the outstretched hand, recognizing the trap for what it was. He'd seen this routine before. "I'm Milo," he said without taking the hand. Derek's smile widened as he withdrew his hand and suddenly slapped Milo's lunch tray, sending his food scattering across the floor. The cafeteria erupted in laughter. "Oops," Derek said. "Guess you're clumsy, huh?" Milo felt his muscles coiling, years of training screaming at him to react. He could visualize exactly how to sweep Derek's legs from under him, how to control the fall to pin the larger boy to the ground in a way that would leave him helpless without causing serious injury. Instead, he knelt and began picking up his scattered lunch. "Look at him," Trent jeered. "Pathetic." From across the cafeteria, Ms. Hernandez, a Spanish teacher on lunch duty, called out, "Is there a problem over there?" "No problem, Ms. H," Derek called back cheerfully. "Just helping the new kid clean up his mess." The teacher nodded and turned. Away conversation in the cafeteria, gradually resuming as the entertainment concluded. "See you around, Milo," Derek said, pronouncing his name with exaggerated slowness. "Welcome to Westridge." As they walked away, Milo heard Vince suggest, "Let's call him Mild O, like mild sauce. No heat." And so it began. Mild O followed him through the hallways between classes. In gym, his clothes mysteriously disappeared from his locker while he showered, forcing him to wear his damp gym uniform for the rest of the day. His books were knocked from his hands between classes. Anonymous notes with crude drawings appeared in his locker. Milo endured it all silently, his jaw clenched but his fists never raised. At night, he would train harder than ever in the garage his father had converted to a home gym, striking the heavy bag with controlled precision, practicing submission holds on a grappling dummy, letting the disciplined movements of martial arts calm his mind. I promised Dad I wouldn't fight unless absolutely necessary, he reminded himself each time the anger threatened to overtake him. This isn't life or death. It's just high school. 3 weeks into the semester, Mrs. Garner, Milo's English teacher, partnered him with Layla Crawford for a project on The Great Gatsby. Layla was quiet but confident, with an easy smile and a reputation for being kind to everyone. She was one of the few students who had introduced herself to Milo without mockery or pity in her eyes. "Don't let them get to you," she told him as they worked in the library. "Derek and his friends do this to someone new every year. Eventually, they'll get bored and move on." Milo nodded but didn't respond. He wasn't sure he believed her. "You know," she continued, studying him, "you're not what they think you are." His head snapped up. "What do you mean?" She smiled. "I don't know exactly, but there's something about the way you carry yourself sometimes, when you think no one's watching. Like you're, I don't know, containing something." Milo felt a chill run down his spine. "I'm just trying to get through the day," he said carefully. Layla shrugged. "Well, whatever. Just know they don't represent all of Westridge. Some of us are actually decent humans." The bullying continued to escalate. In the hallways, Derek would accidentally shoulder-check Milo into lockers. In the cafeteria, tripping became a daily hazard. Vince took particular pleasure in spreading rumors that Milo had been kicked out of his previous school for creeping on girls, which led to disgusted looks from female classmates who had previously been neutral toward him. Through it all, Milo contained his growing fury. He had given his father his word, and that meant something. His father had always trusted him to make the right choices, to use restraint and judgment. Violence was the last resort, not the first response. But on a rainy Tuesday in October, everything changed. Milo had been at Westridge for nearly 2 months now. The constant harassment had become almost routine, something he endured like bad weather. He had developed strategies, routes through less crowded hallways, timing his arrival at the classes to minimize exposure, eating lunch outside or in empty classrooms when possible. What he couldn't know was that Derek and his friends had grown bored with the predictable reactions they'd been getting. They wanted to escalate, to see the new kid truly break. During lunch period, while most students were in the cafeteria, Derek, Trent and Vince snuck into Mr. Patton's empty classroom, Milo's homeroom. They had stolen the teacher's keys during gym class when he'd left them momentarily unattended in his office. "This is gonna be epic," Vince snickered as they closed the classroom door behind them. "Mildo's gonna freak. We should do it quick," Trent said nervously, glancing at the door. "Someone might come." "Don't be such a wimp," Derek scoffed, pulling the classroom's garbage can to the center of the room. "No one's coming. Teachers are all having their meeting and everyone else is at lunch." What followed was as juvenile as it was disgusting. The 3 boys took turns urinating in the trash can, then splashed the contents around the classroom. On desks, the floor, even splattering some on the walls near Milo's assigned seat. "Now for the finishing toucher," Derek said, pulling a crumpled paper from his pocket. He smoothed it out on the teacher's desk, revealing a crude note in handwriting that mimicked Milo's from assignments he'd seen. "I'm sick of being disrespected. This is what I think of this stupid school." He placed it prominently on the teacher's desk, adding a few drops of urine to the paper for effect. "Let's get out of here," Trent said, already backing toward the door. "This is too far, man. Don't chicken out now," Derek hissed. "This is going to be legendary. No one will even talk to the freak after this." They slipped out, carefully locking the door behind them, and headed to the bathroom to wash their hands before rejoining the lunch crowd, as if nothing had happened. When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch period, students began filing into their respective classrooms. Milo arrived at Mr. Patton's room for history class, noticing a small crowd gathered outside the door, faces contorted in disgust. "Oh my God, what's that smell? Who would do something like this?" Mr. Patton pushed through the crowd, keys jangling. "Everyone step back, please," he ordered, his face grim as he unlocked the door. The stench hit immediately, causing several students to gag and back away. The teacher stepped inside, surveyed the damage, and promptly stepped out, closing the door behind him. "Everyone, go to the library. Ms. Johnson will supervise you while I get the administration and custodial staff." As students moved away, chattering excitedly about the incident, Mr. Patton grabbed Milo's arm. "Not you, Kavinsky. You stay right here." Confusion washed over Milo's face. "Sir," Mr. Patton's expression was stone. "Don't play innocent. The note was a nice touch, but your handwriting is distinctive. Principal's office. Now." Derek, Trent, and Vince lingered at the edge of the dispersing crowd, poorly concealing their smirks. "But I didn't," Milo began, "Now, Kavinsky," Mr. Patton snapped, "and I'll be there as soon as I speak with maintenance." The next hour passed in a blur. Milo sat in the hard plastic chair outside Principal Wagner's office, his mind racing. When, finally admitted inside, he found not only the principal but also the assistant principal, Mr. Patton, and the school resource officer waiting. The evidence against him seemed damning. The note, which Mr. Patton insisted, matched his handwriting. The fact that he'd been the target of the wrestling team captain and might have a motive for retaliation. His status as a new student with no established reputation to defend him. "This is an expulsion-level offense, Mr. Kavinsky," Principal Wagner said gravely. "Destruction of school property. Biohazard contamination." "I didn't do it," Milo interrupted, his voice stronger than anyone in the room had ever heard it. "It was Derek Holloway and his friends." Principal Wagner leaned back in her chair. "That's a serious accusation against students with exemplary records. Do you have any proof?" Milo's silence was all the answer she needed. "We've called your parents," she continued. "Until they arrive, you have two choices. Admit to what you've done and begin making amends by helping clean up your mess under supervision, or continue denying it and face immediate suspension pending an expulsion hearing." Milo's heart pounded in his chest. His father wouldn't arrive for at least an hour given the distance to his workplace. His mother was out of town visiting his grandmother. "I didn't do it," he repeated firmly. Principal Wagner sighed. "Then I have no choice but to—" "I'll clean it," Milo cut in, surprising everyone, including himself. "Not because I did it, but because I want to stay in school." The principal studied him for a long moment. "Very well. Officer Reyes will supervise you. Mr. Dunham from maintenance has proper cleaning supplies and protective gear. This doesn't change anything regarding your punishment, but it shows some responsibility." And so, dressed in rubber gloves, boots, and a plastic apron, Milo spent the next hour cleaning up the disgusting mess that Derek and his friends had made. The humiliation burned through him like acid as he mopped and disinfected, his mind cycling between rage and disbelief. Through the classroom windows, he occasionally caught glimpses of students passing by, their faces a mix of disgust and fascination. At one point, he looked up to see Derek and his friends walking by slowly, deliberately making eye contact through the glass. Derek pantomimed a crying motion, then laughed along with Trent and Vince. Something cracked inside Milo then. A dam that had been holding back months of frustration, years of training, and a lifetime of restrained power. "This is absolutely necessary," he thought grimly. When his father finally arrived, the situation had already been explained to him by Principal Wagner. David Kavinsky, a broad-shouldered man with the same gray eyes as his son but none of the hesitation, listened silently to the accusations, then asked for a moment alone with Milo. In the empty conference room, David studied his son's face. "Did you do this?" "No," Milo said firmly. "Do you know who did?" "Yes." David nodded once. "Have you done anything about it yet?" "No." Another nod. "Good. Let me handle this." What followed was an hour of David Kavinsky calmly but relentlessly questioning the evidence, pointing out inconsistencies, and demanding a proper investigation before any punishment was assigned. He reminded the administration of liability issues if they punished a student without due process, mentioned his friendship with several school board members, and subtly referenced his military background and connections. By the end, Principal Wagner had agreed to suspend judgment for 24 hours while reviewing security footage from the hallways near the classroom during lunch period. "We'll get this sorted out," David told Milo as they walked to the car. "You stuck to your principles. I'm proud of you." Milo said nothing, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Inside, something had fundamentally changed. His father's approval once, everything to him, now felt hollow compared to the burning need for justice he felt. That night, Milo didn't sleep. He sat on his bed, turning a small polished stone over and over in his hand, a gift from his martial arts instructor when he'd earned his black belt. "Remember," Sensei Williams had told him, "a stone seems passive until it's in motion. Then nothing can stop it." Milo felt himself shifting from passive to active, from potential energy to kinetic. The next morning he dressed with unusual care, choosing clothes that allowed freedom of movement, athletic pants instead of jeans, a fitted t-shirt rather than his usual loose button-up. He wrapped his hands carefully with the thin training wraps he used for Muay Thai, concealing them under the sleeves of a light jacket, despite the warm weather. At breakfast, his father noticed the change. "Milo," he said carefully. "Whatever. You're thinking, I'm just going to school, Dad." Milo replied, his voice unnaturally calm. "Trust me." David Kavinsky studied his son for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I do trust you, but remember what I taught you. I remember everything you taught me, Milo answered. At school, the morning passed in a haze. Whispers followed him through the hallways, but he barely registered them. His mind was clear, focused, his body humming with controlled energy. He moved differently, back straight, shoulders relaxed but squared, eyes forward instead of downcast. Layla noticed immediately when he sat next to her in English. You look different today, she said quietly. Milo glanced at her. Do I? Yeah, like you're finally here, if that makes sense. He almost smiled. It does. During lunch period, Milo didn't hide in an empty classroom or sit alone in a corner of the cafeteria. Instead, he walked purposefully to the table where Derek and his friends held court, surrounded by admiring teammates and hangers-on. The cafeteria noise dimmed as he approached, students nudging each other and pointing. Derek looked up, a slow grin spreading across his face when he saw who was coming. Well, if it isn't the janitor, he drawled. How's the cleanup going, Mildo? Milo stopped directly across the table from him. We need to talk, he said, his voice steady. Privately, Derek's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. Do we? Now I don't think I have anything to say to you that I can't say right here. I think you do, Milo insisted. Unless you want me to start the conversation by asking why you, Trent, and Vince were seen near Mr. Patton's classroom during lunch yesterday when everyone else was in the cafeteria. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Derek's face before his sneer returned. What are you talking about? Security cameras, Milo said simply. Principal Wagner is reviewing the footage right now. It's just a matter of time. Trent shifted uncomfortably beside Derek. Vince suddenly became very interested in his lunch. Derek stood, towering over Milo. Fine, let's talk. Outside. They walked out of the cafeteria, Trent and Vince following close behind. Milo was acutely aware of every exit, every potential witness, every advantage and disadvantage in the environment. He led them toward the gym, which he knew would be empty during lunch period. Once inside the deserted gymnasium, Derek shoved Milo hard from behind, sending him stumbling forward. You think you're clever with that security camera bullshit? Derek snarled. There are no cameras in that hallway. I checked before we did it. Milo regained his balance easily, turning to face them. Thanks for confirming it was you. Derek's face darkened as he realized his mistake. Doesn't matter. It's your word against ours. And everyone knows you're just a pathetic little freak. You made me clean up your piss, Milo said, his voice dangerously quiet. Do you have any idea what that feels like? Oh, is Mildo going to cry about it? Vince taunted, emboldened by the privacy of the gym. Milo slipped off his jacket, revealing the wrapped hands beneath. No, he said simply. I'm not going to cry about it. Derek laughed. What's this? You think you're some kind of fighter now? I've always been a fighter, Milo replied. I just chose not to show it. Derek lunged forward suddenly, aiming a wild punch at Milo's face. What happened next left Trent and Vince frozen in shock. Milo slipped the punch with minimal movement, stepping slightly to the side while simultaneously delivering a lightning-fast jab to Derek's solar plexus. As Derek doubled over, the air driven from his lungs, Milo executed a perfect tie clinch, pulling Derek's head down while driving a knee into his midsection. Derek collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Trent recovered from his shock and rushed forward with a roar. Milo pivoted smoothly, using Trent's momentum against him to execute a hip throw that sent the stocky redhead crashing to the hardwood floor with a painful thud. Vince backed away, hands raised. Whoa, man, calm down. I am calm, Milo said, his voice steady despite his rapid breathing. That's what makes this different from what you did to me. I'm making a choice. You acted like animals. Derek had regained enough breath to stagger to his feet. You're dead, Kavinsky, he wheezed, charging forward again. This time Milo met him head-on, blocking a wild haymaker and countering with a swift combination, jab, cross, elbow, that sent Derek reeling backward, blood flowing from his nose. Yubene. Years of training, Milo said, advancing steadily. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, 3 years of Muay Thai. I could have done this on day one. Trent had regained his feet and attempted to grab Milo from behind. Without looking, Milo stomped hard on Trent's instep, then reached back to secure his arm and execute a perfect shoulder throw, sending Trent flying over his shoulder to crash into Derek. Both boys went down in a tangle of limbs. Vince had backed all the way to the gym doors. You're crazy, man. No, Milo corrected him calmly. I'm trained. There's a difference. He turned his attention back to Derek and Trent, who were struggling to disentangle themselves. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to go to Principal Wagner and confess what you did. All of it. Not just yesterday, but everything since I got here. Derek spat blood onto the floor. Like hell we are. Milo shrugged. Then I guess we keep going. I can do this all day. To demonstrate his point, he moved forward with frightening speed and precision, feinting a high strike before sweeping Derek's legs out from under him as he tried to stand. In the same fluid motion, he caught Trent with a stiff front kick to the chest that sent him sprawling backward. The difference between us, Milo said as he stood over them, is that I know exactly how much damage I'm doing. I'm choosing not to hurt you badly. You never gave anyone that consideration. The gym doors burst open as a basketball coach, drawn by the noise, entered. What the hell is going on in here? He demanded. Milo stepped back immediately, lowering his hands. Just clearing up a misunderstanding, sir, he said calmly. These guys were about to go talk to Principal Wagner about something important. Weren't you? Derek struggled to his feet, his face a mask of fury and humiliation. For a moment it seemed he might try to attack again, but the cold, confident look in Milo's eyes stopped him. Yeah, he muttered finally. We were just leaving. The aftermath was swift and comprehensive. Faced with the choice between confessing or facing Milo again, this time with the entire story coming out, Derek, Trent, and Vince chose self-preservation. They admitted to framing Milo for the classroom incident, as well as the weeks of harassment leading up to it. Principal Wagner, horrified by the extent of the bullying that had occurred under her watch, brought in all parents involved for a conference. Derek and his friends received 2-week suspensions and were required to complete community service hours. Derek was temporarily removed as wrestling team captain, pending a review by the athletic director. Milo received a single day of in-school suspension for fighting, a token punishment that even his father agreed was fair. Actions have consequences, David Kavinsky told him, even justified ones. The real changes were less official but more profound. When Milo returned to regular classes, the hallways no longer fell silent when he passed. Instead, students nodded or even smiled in greeting. At lunch, Layla waved him over to sit with her friends. I knew there was something different about you, she told him, eyes bright with interest. You moved too well in gym class to be as awkward as you pretended to be. Milo shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. I wasn't pretending to be awkward, just containing certain parts of myself. Well, I like this version better, she decided, the one who doesn't hide. Derek and his friends gave Milo a wide berth when they returned from suspension. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no heartfelt apology, just a careful, wary distance that spoke volumes about how thoroughly the power dynamic had shifted. One afternoon, several weeks later, Milo was practicing kicks on the heavy bag in his garage when his father joined him. You never told me exactly what happened in that gym, David said, holding the bag steady as Milo struck it with controlled precision. Milo paused, wiping sweat from his forehead. I didn't become what I hate. If that's what you're worried about. David studied his son thoughtfully. No, I don't think you did, but you did change. I stopped letting myself be victimized, Milo corrected. There's a difference between pacifism and passivity. I was confusing the two. His father nodded slowly. There's wisdom in that. Just remember, I know, Milo interrupted with a smile. Great power, great responsibility. You taught me well. As he returned to his practice, striking the heavy bag with disciplined force, Milo reflected on how quickly life at Westridge had transformed. He wasn't suddenly popular or celebrated. That would have been a Hollywood ending, not reality. But he was respected. He walked the halls as himself now, not a hunched shadow trying to avoid notice. The bullies had chosen the wrong target, and in doing so, had inadvertently given Milo something he hadn't realized he was missing. Not the chance to fight, but the opportunity to stop hiding who he really was. At Westridge High School, the new kid wasn't so mild after all.